So today I'm going to talk about something very, very important. As you all know, solar power can be environmentally friendly. It can be. Battery mining for lithium, for batteries, dubious. I'll let those, electric cars and lithium mining, energy expensive, water table, all that kind of thing, and manufacturing batteries themselves, water table, etc., energy intensive. Let's leave that to aside for the moment, and let's talk about the actual area that I want to talk about, which are birds. Birds and solar panels. They don't necessarily mix. Some solar panels are on top of roofs. Some are flush with roofs. So the ones that are flush with roofs don't pose a problem because the birds can't get underneath. However, the solar panels that are perched on top of the roofs, there are problems with these if they don't have bird meshes. There are also additional problems with solar installation on roofs if it hasn't been done properly. For example, roofs are supposed to keep water out, but if they haven't been kept out, it can lead to leaks, damage to the roof, etc. So today, the topic of discussion today, if you want to join in, feel free, are bird mesh. So the different sizes of bird mesh, if you want to buy some for your solar panels, or if you're fitting solar panels and you want to avoid your customers from calling you back saying there's pigeons roosting under my solar panels, then this is what you can do. You can go to a bird mesh supplier, maybe just go to your local trade counter and say, hey guys, how are you? Busy? And then get right to the important matter, which is the bird mesh. And say, I would like to purchase bird mesh, please. They might ask you questions like, okay, we have 100 mil, we have 200 mil, we've even got 150 mil. What it's referring to is not the length, that's usually about 30 meters. They're talking about the height of it, the height. So typically from the roof to the solar panel, to the top of the solar panel. There is what they call a kick out at the bottom, which you make when you're installing. Bit of 2x4 timber to help you make that 30-degree bend at the bottom of the mesh, to help that mesh fit snugly against the solar panel. So back to the trade counter. Yeah, I'd like to buy some mesh, please. 100 mil, 200 mil. I'd like 200 mil, please, because the solar panels are fairly high off the roof. The guy says, okay, would you like heavy duty or standard? Well, heavy duty would tend to use stronger fixings, metal fixings, not plastic fixings. They're heavier. You'd expect a heavier gauge, and also the bird sizes impact what kind of. And when I talk about bird sizes, I'm talking about the pests, because as beautiful as birds are, the poo and the reproduction cycle, the nesting under your solar panels, they have a right to live, of course, but the question is, do you want them living under your solar panels? It's like, do we want so many people crossing the channel? Not my solar panel, please. It's a similar sort of mentality. So the question is, do you want to compromise on the output of your solar panel? I mean, significantly. Do you want to compromise the gutter integrity, let alone the noise or the bird poo that may rain down upon your garden because you haven't installed bird netting or had the installer install bird netting? The pigeons come, they roost under your solar panel, they poo in your garden, and yes, they do poo. The eggs, some of them might roll down onto your lovely lawn near your garden gnome. Do we want this kind of behaviour? So the simple solution, pest control, is a huge industry in the UK, as you can imagine. But I'm specifically talking about birds here, and birds versus solar panels. So how to stamp this problem out is really, really simple, guys. That's why I'm doing this video. So mesh. So you get your installer, if they haven't already, to install mesh around the solar panels. If it's heavy gauge mesh, like I said, 200mm, they're likely to have metal fixings. The flexi mesh probably has flat plastic fixings. Okay, get it from a reputable supplier. So when I say that, don't just buy it off the internet. Go to your trade counter, because these people, they've vetted the manufacturers and they're unlikely to sell junk. They've bought in bulk to get a good deal with the manufacturer. So that's what you're looking for good bird mesh around your solar panel to keep out those pests that might nest underneath. You get the picture. So I'm going to talk about batteries that you might have with your solar panels, because that's not the topic of this video. So what else can I tell you about bird mesh? So bird mesh is a wire mesh, and it's been hot dipped. Hot galvanized. It's galvanized. Yeah, that's rust protection. And not only that, on top of the galvanization process, it's been dipped in plastic, PVC, polyvinyl ethylene. That again offers a degree of rust protection which you need. I mean, that netting, that mesh it's going to be exposed to the elements. It's going to be battered, especially along the UK coasts. So you need to make sure it's standing up year upon year, and don't just DIY it, even though you can. Unless you're a professional accredited installer, get it installed professionally so it doesn't void the warranties, and it will have its own manufacturer warranty if installed by a properly trained installer. So you got the bird mesh installed, so that's great. That's wonderful. That's really going to help you. I myself personally had this problem myself. So I had solar panels installed, and lo and behold, after a few days, birds, pigeons, namely pigeons, eyeing the underside of the solar panel, looking like this, looking for a place to roost. They roosted. They tried to roost. My neighbour had solar panels. He got his broom out, even chucking stones up at his solar panels, small stones, which I found quite bizarre. But then all of a sudden, boom! Because I had my solar panels installed recently, I called the people that installed them. Said, "Look, could you install some bird mesh? Some pigeons have roosted. Very interested in the underside of my solar panels. Could you do something about it, please?" Well, within days, they came round. They installed the mesh. And my neighbours, obviously, my neighbour got interested in the mesh and called the people up. And then my other neighbours had solar panels installed with mesh shortly after. So mesh is a great idea. But it sort of brings us on to the wider topic of solar panel fixings. Because if you think about it, solar panels aren't roofs, are they? They're on roofs. So what are the issues that you might face? Solar panels versus roofs. So that's an interesting point because not everyone has solar panels installed. So what are the weaknesses, the problems and the issues? Well, to do that, to look at that, you need to look at different types of roofs. So there might be flat roofs, there might be pitched roofs, there might be rubber roofs, there might be fiberglass roofs. I mean, obviously for some of these, we're talking about commercial installations, for flat roofs, but not always. So we typically have tiles on our roofs in the UK. So Rosemary Trials can place a particular challenge for those installing solar panels because of the batten spacing underneath the tiles are quite close. So the tile hooks need to be specialised. So some manufacturers offer flanges on their hooks that are shortened, which allows you then to place them in between the battens very well indeed. Some manufacturers offer specialised rubber tile hook mats. So hook mats replace your tiles. They replace the tile under the hook. So what's great about that is if you've got expensive, for example, rosemary tiles, you don't have to drill holes in those tiles for wires or for the hooks. No, you just remove that tile carefully, put it into storage, insert the hook mat, which is the similar size as your tile, just slots right in there. You can get hook mats even with specialized grooves in them so that the AC or DC cables can run under them so it doesn't compromise the angle which the tile seats. Very clever stuff. So hook mats are great. So their hook mats are like tile replacements. They're rubberized. They're repurposed rubber, usually tire rubber that's been recycled. Very useful indeed. So if you've got a typical tile roof, plain tile, consider getting a hook mat from a reputable UK supplier. Go to any of your trade counters and inquire after them. So the hook mats, like I said, are great because they protect your existing tiles. If you have a slate roof, it's a bit of even more of a challenge. You might have to get a system from your trade counter that has like a slate replacement. So you take out your slate, because those are often irreplaceable historically. You slide this plastic slate imitation underneath, which has a hole in it, like a little volcano with a hole in, and that is where the essentially where the bolt goes in that screws into your rafter. It's an anodized, specialized bolt that goes in, and then that would serve as your anchor to your joist, and then wouldn't allow you to install the standard rails onto the hook. And then, yeah, once you got the rails up, then you can install the solar panels. So that's especially tricky with slate tiles, and some of you may well have those slate tiles. So, what else do we need to consider when we're bringing solar panels to our house? Well, obviously there's forces involved. There's the dead load of the actual weight of the solar panel, and its accessories. It's like rails and the bolts and the tile hooks and the netting. This all represents the dead weight. Then you've got wind factors. And then you've got snow factors. So those are all represented by BSEN 1991 1-4 and 1-3. So those are the wind and the snow factors that you need to be sort of take into consideration if you're an installer of these systems. So those are factors. If it's a very unusual roof, very old roof, very unusual shape, you may well have to get a structural engineer to look at it, because once you go beyond the normal loads on a roof, wind, snow, shearing forces, etc., you need a structural analysis done on your particular roof. If you've got a particularly unusual roof or very large system, so just think about that. But a typical UK roof doesn't need it. Usually, if you're going over the trade counter, the suppliers will provide standardized structural analysis that would suit your roof if it's a standard roof. Anything kinky, anything unusual, yeah, structural analysis. So in terms of manufacturers, if you're curious about what kinds of manufacturers are manufacturing the solar panels and the inverters and all that, and the components, the attachments, the metallic structures, the plastic and connectors and the rubber tiles, there are various suppliers, as you can imagine. But I wouldn't like to focus on the electronic ones, because I don't know anything about those, where they come from. I just know that they're big business, huge investment. Just think of Elon Musk with his solar company. But in terms of the smaller fittings and fixtures, there are various competitors. There are three main ones in Germany. They've been going for donkey's years. Renusol, K2 Systems, which is usually a go-to system, and Schleyer. as well. So those typically, apart from K2, the other two really specialize in flat roofs. K2 is really the go-to for solar for everything else. And then you've got a friend system, which is more to do with the solar being integrated into the roof, which then, of course, eliminates the need for bird mesh, and yeah, and wind shear factors and all that kind of thing, because it's the solar panel is in line with the roof. Then you get a few Chinese manufacturers, which some of which also stock to UK trade counters such as Screwfix, Travis Perkins, etc. So in summary, if you're getting a solar panel fitted to your roof, get it fitted by all means. It'll help reduce your overall electricity bill. Although not today because it's raining quite heavily in the UK where I am. But otherwise, get them fitted, and get the bird mesh fitted. And we got comments from Brinth Plays saying hi, Smurf GT3 saying hi, and Michaela also saying hi. Okay, and hi to you, and bye to you, and thanks for watching. This is a JC production.